Alright, it's all out. Swarm is up on PBE, and so far it's breaking Riot's expectations. Aurora is up as well, and for the most part, people are not complaining about her kit. And with that, Aurora's lore also got released, which is exactly what we're diving into today. And because we didn't rush it the moment it came out, we also got Aurora's voice lines and a little bit of extra fluff on top of that. So in this video, we can bunch it all together and dive into Aurora's character in its entirety. So, without further ado, let's get on it. As most of you will know, Aurora is Vastaya from the frozen tundras of the Freljord. She was born in a secluded village of Amu, which is the home to the Brani tribe, which, as far as we know, should be the bunny people. And here she spent her early life playing with tiny animals that others seemingly couldn't see. Now, despite the fact that she felt isolated from the rest of the village, and even her parents didn't understand her, believing that she had imaginary friends, Aurora was happy. The only one who embraced Aurora from the entire tribe was her great aunt Havu, who always told her stories and encouraged her to celebrate her individuality. And so, that's what Aurora did. She learned to be herself, enjoying her own company. Over time, however, as Aurora grew older, she learned that her imaginary friends were indeed real spirits, who lived in a separate world beyond the realm of mortals. A spirit realm which Aurora could pierce through with her own eyes. And so, following this discovery, Aurora documented the spirit realm, and she studied the spirits surrounding the Amu village. Though over time, more and more spirits appeared in Amu, with some of them feeling a bit different. These other spirits were disturbed by mortals and their wars. Interestingly enough though, the story doesn't tell us which specific battles disturbed these spirits. It could be the invasion of Ionia, it could be anything following the Rune Wars, or it could be any battle within the Freljord. We don't really have the timeline for Aurora's story after all. Anyway, after investigating what's happening in Amu, Aurora found out that she could help these spirits return home by fixing the root of their pain. It was difficult work, but soon it became Aurora's life's purpose. She knew that in order to continue her research, she would have to leave Amu, which wasn't an easy choice for Aurora. At first, she was nervous about this change, but soon she was inspired by the thought of expanding her knowledge. As she traveled around the Freljord, eventually she met a disturbed spirit that took the form of a twisted elk. He was feral and afraid, lashing out with blood-stained antlers. Aurora wanted to calm him down, and after a while, she earned his trust to at least try. But the spirit was unlike the others. With every attempt to help, she failed. All she managed to do was to convince the elk to travel with her as she unravels his mystery. Eventually, Aurora met a number of spirit walkers who were known for their knowledge of spirits. She was hoping they would know what's plaguing her companion, but unfortunately they too were at a loss. And they suggested she should find Udir, the most powerful spirit walker of them all. After she did so, at a first glance, Udir recognized the immense power of Aurora's spirit friend, but the elk was too lost to commune with. Instead, he encouraged Aurora to ask the demigods for answers herself. And so, Aurora decided to first search for the great ram, Ornn. She traveled far through ice and snow to study the artifacts of his followers, the Hearthblood, hoping to learn where they had worshipped him. And eventually, through her research, she was able to narrow down the location of Hearthhome. Though, in the present days, that legendary settlement was nothing but a ruin. Of course, now we know that Hearthhome was destroyed after Ornn's battle with Volibear. But Aurora knew there was something behind these ruins, and so, using her ability to open doorway between realms, she stepped inside and was met with the Great Hall of Ornn's Forge, alive with roaring fire. And that is where, as we now know, the Spirit of Hearthhome minigame happened. At first, Ornn mostly ignored his new visitor, but in time he realized that she, like him, valued solitude and quiet. As he grew to trust her, Ornn finally shared the name of Aurora's companion, Hastrier, one of Ornn's siblings. Hasterelk, as he was once commonly called, was originally a powerful demigod. But with the waning worship of the old gods, many demigods had lost their identities and became distorted shadows of who they once were. Of course, this is a reference to the fact that demigods get their power from the worshippers. And with Lysandra and the Frostguard trying to wipe the history of the old gods, it makes sense why the demigods started to be forgotten. This revelation about her spirited friend brought Aurora one step closer to helping him find his way home. But there was still a long journey ahead of her. From Ornn, she learned about Isiarn, the cryo-phoenix who guides and protects the land while enduring an eternal cycle of birth, life and death. And though painful, Ornn also spoke of his brother Valir, whom we know as Volibear, whose storm rages against the Freljord. Believing these demigods hold the key to Hasterelk's recovery, Aurora has left Hearth home, and she now travels through the material and spirit realms in pursuit of their knowledge. So, that is Aurora's base story. Honestly, it is a really good one because it ties a lot of the story beats together. First of all, it is cool to see that Aurora has a story setup with Anivia and even Volibear. I can't wait to hear about how she met them, though I have no idea how we're gonna learn about that because short stories are not a thing anymore. But also, this seemingly random tie-in with Udyr is so good too. It makes sense, and I'm glad to see Riot making the effort to make this world feel united. Speaking of which, apparently Aurora also has quite a few awesome voice lines with champions you wouldn't expect. In fact, some of her lines might be setting up more stories for the future. So now, let's have a look at those.
Isiarn, I've been searching for you. My friend Hestrir, he needs your help.
Immediately at the beginning, we get this quick snippet of where Aurora's story cut off. And that's kinda it.
Ash, you want to bridge the Freljord's divide, but unity isn't harmony.
Then she gets this line where she calls Ash out for being a war leader. They are still killing their enemies, even though they are doing it for peace.
You're not human, but you're not a spirit either. You are, however, very loud.
Now, of course, Briar is a blood golem, which means that Briar was created with blood, which means that she is very much physical.
Nagake Boros is your god, right? I'd love to know more.
Then we have a bit of curiosity coming out of Aurora, as she's eager to learn about all the other spirity gods around the world.
Wolf and Lamb, I didn't think I'd meet you so soon.
And here it is cool to see that she even recognizes Kindred. They are, after all, the most known spirits of death, with other champions from the Freljord also referencing them in the past.
You are no witch, Lysandra. You're a disease.
This is an obvious reference to Lysandra's title, the Ice Witch. Although it is really just a title because Aurora confirmed that proper witchcraft is centered around spirits.
Well met, Ramharg! I have so much to share with you since we last spoke.
And yes, she also has a bunch of these cool lines with Ornn, referencing her bio. And then there is this line.
I recognize those ravens. Are you their owner? Or do they own you?
What's cool about this one is that it is referencing what we have seen in the comic. We know that Swain is spying on Aurora and Ornn, which very much feels like a setup for the future. And since Aurora also has a direct line mentioning this, it almost makes a confirmation loop. So even though we don't know what's the deal with Swain right now, just remember this one because it might pop up in the future.
We meet again, Spirit Walker. Care to catch up after this?
And yes, since she also met Udyr in her bio, she had to have a line with him.
I can feel you trying to invade my mind, Valhir. Cut it out.
And funnily enough, she also has a line with Volibear. This one is specifically referencing the story Silence for the Damned, where Volibear almost managed to dominate Udyr's mind, which is exactly what he does to all the Ursine.
You stain your blade with spirits, Yone. Why hurt what you can heal?
And yes, she can't really be friend with someone like Yone, who is slaughtering the Azakana. Funnily enough, there are no lines with someone like Shen, though.
I can still help. Let me organize my notes and we can try again.
And at the end, she also has all of these lines with spirits, all referencing her story. So overall, the voice lines are mostly focused on Anivia, Ornn, Volibear, Udyr, and even possibly Swain. But most importantly, she also has quite a few lines with Yordles.
Where do Yordles go when they die? Back to Bandle City?
Specifically, she knows that Yordles are immortal. And so she questions the logistics of that.
So little is documented about the spirit realm. My work will help others understand what they can't see. The spirit realm, the material realm, they aren't mirror images, but two halves of one existence.
And of course, as it is kinda the norm these days, she also has a bunch of these long moves which pretty much explain the lore to the players who are too lazy to read the lore. Also, there is this one.
You know, technically, we're never more than 5 steps from a spirit.
This is a joke about the theory that if you take a chain of a friend of a friend of a friend, it shouldn't take a chain longer than 5 friends for any 2 people around the world to know each other. Yeah, that is a very real theory you can Google right now.
I won't let the demigods, old and forgotten, lose their way because of the Frostguard's lies.
And this one is referencing how the Frostguard are trying to wipe the history, so that everyone forgets about the fact that Lysandra once tried to help the Watchers. And that is pretty much it for the voice lines too. The last thing we can mention around Aurora are her notes, which Riot shared on Twitter. We got this image of her table where we can see her wand, a scribble of herself and a spirit, shards of black ice linking to Lysandra, a cup of tea, the books which you may remember from the minigame, and some of her personal notes about Ornn, which were shared in a separate image. And here it's just Aurora describing Ornn. It's pretty cool. And that is it. Honestly, Aurora's story is pretty good, but it's made so much better with all the connections to all the other champions. From Ornn to Anivia to Volibear to Udyr to even Swain. I love when Riot releases these champions that make the world feel alive again. And that's especially with Aurora also getting the minigame entirely based on canon lore. So from the perspective of League's story, Aurora is a success. And that's not to mention that Riot also managed to tick off another box when it comes to diversity. Because even though it wasn't mentioned directly in the story, it was confirmed that Aurora's character is based on autism. She's just like us.